So on this episode of Garage Noise, we're gonna do a complete paint job on this 1996 Chevy truck. We've already started on it. There's gonna be quite a few videos on this. I think I'm gonna make it into a little bit of a series for painting because I'm not gonna do all one video on just painting this because there's a lot of aspects to it and I wanna cover in detail some of the things that we're gonna do to this truck so you can get all the information that you need. If you wanna increase your skill and build your knowledge, all you gotta do is like and subscribe to the channel. Okay, so let's talk about this body repair. I went ahead and put a coat of body filler over it, block sanded it straight, and I've been filling it here and there where it needs it. Sprayed some guide coat on this, and we're gonna find out if there's any high and low areas by blocking it. So I'm just gonna block it in an X pattern. I have some 80 grit on this long board. Okay, as you can see, there's a low area here. This is a high area, low on this side. I'm gonna continue blocking this until this flattens out or else I break through somewhere. If I break through and hit metal here or something, then I need to do something else. Put some more filler on this. Okay, now, so what's left on this is some very minor low spots. There's a few pinholes, and how we're gonna take care of those, there's a low area here, is we're gonna use a little bit of glazing putty. It's actually poly putty, and we're gonna put a thin coat on this, and then we'll be able to block the rest of this straight with some 180. So let's do that now. Stir up some icing. And like I said, this is just going to be a thin coat. So this icing is really easy to work with. It sands really easy and it works perfectly for these small little areas. Filling any small things like small dents or small dings. I wouldn't say dents, but dings or scratches, that type of thing. This stuff works really well. Of course, I'll leave links in the description to all the products and tools I use in this video, if that's something you're interested in. Okay, we're gonna apply some primer on this. This is epoxy primer. I'm just putting it over the metal on this. We primed this cab panel and we primed this rear panel. We used the epoxy primer on it. I didn't want to use the polyester primer on the back because it's really rough and it's for blocking, and this doesn't need any blocking. I just needed to get the metal protected for paint, so we used the epoxy primer. I went ahead and sprayed this panel too with the epoxy primer, and then I had a little boo-boo here because my gun was wide open when I sprayed it at first. And that's why I always say start check your gun pattern, check your volume, but I did not check my settings, and I laid it on there and it just came gushing out and ran. So we'll get that sanded out. But overall, this panel is straight now, and I'm gonna use some 2K primer over that body filler. We wanna build up some primer on there so we can block it with some 320, get it perfectly straight and ready for paint. And then we're gonna move on to, excuse my light here, we're gonna move on to the rest of the vehicle and start working our way around to the door. And we are gonna use the polyester Optex primer on that. There's not a lot of dents, but of course we use the Optex primer on this, and that's the primer that changes color. The guide coat's in the primer itself. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. I'll leave it in the description. But yeah, it's going very well. So let's keep going. So now it's time, we're gonna sand this with 180 grit sandpaper, remove any surface rust that's starting to accumulate on this bare metal. Then we're going to use prep solvent to wipe it all down, and that will clean the surface, get it good and clean. We're gonna tack it off with a tack rag to remove any particles of dust, and immediately spray some 2K polyester primer over top of it. Okay, so this primer sprays 4-to-1. 4 parts primer, 1 part catalyst. It comes out very rough. It's very thick, so you need to use a 2.0 nozzle on your primer gun. So whatever primer gun you're using, you have to have a 2.0 nozzle or higher or larger. So now this is how the primer looks. I'm not sure if you can catch it on film, but it has quite a bit of orange peel. See, okay, you can see the roughness right there. This isn't entirely dry now, but we've got it sprayed. We've got 2 good coats on here. This is gonna be plenty to block this panel straight, and we're gonna get into that in the next video. So we had some minor dings here that we filled before we prime this, because we want to get it straight before we prime it is ideal. So I'm going to go ahead and block sand these flat, and then we're going to get this and prepare this panel for primer. I've already sanded it with 180, but we're going to sand this out and then we'll mask it off and apply the primer. Okay, so now these dents feel really good. They're straight, they're ready for primer. And I would recommend that you get a feel for feeling dents. What you do is you take your hand, you lay it flat, and you can run over it with your hand, and that will tell you, you can feel if it's low or if it's high or that type of thing. It's good to start acquiring that skill. It's something that will come in handy. I can tell that this is ready for primer. If you don't know or you have any questions and you want to spray a guide coat on it to find out for sure, block it, spray the guide coat on, block the guide coat out, and that'll tell you if there's any high or low areas. Okay, so for taping this up, I'm gonna take some 1.5 inch tape here, and on the outside perimeter of this door, I'm going to run tape like this. And this is going to allow me to shut this door. It's gonna hang over the edge there, and then I'll run a piece of paper on it. And that'll keep primer from blowing in that jam, creating a mess all the way around, and then we'll tape up the window. And I'm gonna do the same thing in here. I'm gonna run it probably on this edge here or tuck it in so no primer blows in there. Okay, let's go ahead and spray this with some primer. I'm using the polyester primer. It's mixed 4-to-1. Okay, that's one coat on, and it came out a lot smoother this time. I really dialed down the volume, so the fluid that's coming out of it, and it's a lot smoother. This is gonna make it a lot easier to sand, and this is a really good sanding primer. So yeah, I'm happy with that, and we're gonna mix up some more for a second coat. So if you want to increase your knowledge and build your skills, start now by subscribing and clicking that bell so you don't miss anything. We got a lot accomplished on the Chevy truck today, and there's a lot more in the future. Check out the next video on the Chevy truck, complete paint job. We'll see you next time.